Hello and welcome to the Walk in Love podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Brooke.
And today we're going to talk about doggy paddling. Thank you for listening to the Walk in Love podcast, the weekly conversation between Brooke and I about family, rhythms, faith, emotions, parenting. It's a place where we laugh and sometimes cry as we try to find language to live a full life.
If you like your listening to line up with your living, hey-o, you're in the right place.
You're in the right place.
Somebody say, way-ho.
Way-ho. What was the smirk about as we were doing the intro?
Oh, my smirk was, here we talk about this, we talk about that. And today we're going to talk about doggy paddling. Or no, how does your intro go?
Doggo, yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. And today we're going to talk about doggy paddling. And I almost went, woof, woof, right before.
Man, that would have been nice.
I know, but you hit the button too fast. I didn't feel like it fit in.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway.
Thank you for listening. We are trying something out in February. We are going to adjust the length of the podcast.
Okay.
To see how it goes.
Yeah. For
us, for listenership, for communication, for everything.
Yeah.
So February's might just be a different amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
What? Is that weird?
I'm laughing because pre-recording, we said, so we're going to tell people they're going to be between like 30 and 35 minutes. We're going to keep it shorter. And then I said, yeah, you don't have to explain anything. And then you went into like mystery zone land. Here's what maybe we're going to do.
Yeah.
It's making me laugh.
Well,
at your
I was like, I didn't want to put like a hard time on it. Because like,
it could be 36 minutes.
Yeah. So 37?
It's possible.
38?
Ooh.
Yeah, it seems long.
Yeah.
So
I'm just laughing at the way you went about it.
Yeah.
After you were like, yeah, there's no details to give.
Well,
and then you started with
I like giving people information.
Details.
No, I
do. Do you?
No, I don't.
You don't. So please take that back.
No, I like giving our listeners information.
Okay.
That's about
so how do I become a listener if I start listening to our own podcast?
Yeah. I'll give you information.
All these years, that's what I needed to do to get the information I need from you.
You ask me for information from future TJ. So when we get to that TJ version of TJ, he'll gladly give you that information. But current TJ couldn't care less about anything you're asking or anything that's coming up. I'll give a great example. And if you agree with me, go to the Facebook page and say, I agree with TJ. If you agree with Brooke, we have a separate Facebook page that you can find. It's linked in a different episode. Like you would ask me, whose wedding are we when we shoot weddings? Whose wedding are we shooting this October? And it would be July. And I would say, I have no idea. And
okay. Like, let me say that I have actually come to understand that type of thinking more.
Then you give
work
me an
related.
example.
I know. I'm trying to think of one. Like
because you don't have
like that where I'm just like, yeah, that's true. There's no reason you're holding all that in your head now, especially when we have a system in place to keep all those details and information. Yep. I do have examples, but here's the thing, love. I don't keep track anymore. And so
like here's an example. I'll give you an example.
General information.
Yeah, I came back from hanging out with Ian and you're like, what'd you talk about? And I gave you like maybe a sentence and a half.
Yeah. And it wasn't enough.
Wasn't enough. And I know that, but here's the thing.
Nowhere near enough.
More came out later.
It did. Good for you.
And so that's part of my process.
Yeah.
I'm on a journey.
Okay.
And I take a lot of stops on that journey.
Yeah, you do.
And so if you need some information, jump aboard the train because it's going to take a while.
Choot,
choot, choot. Next stop, 2 days from now.
Sometimes it's just like literal information I need, like details, just more information for context, so I can make my decisions. And then other times it's just like, hey, do you think we should bring bogey boards? And sometimes...
Well, what? Sure, if you want.
See? When I'm asking for your opinion, I want your actual opinion because you better believe I won't ask if I don't want it. I have learned that without listening to our podcast.
So we went to the lava rocks to walk on Sabbath.
What?
The lava rocks?
Yeah.
What do you think I said? Lava rocks?
Just the way. Lava rocks?
Lava rocks? Quabity Auschwitz. And both you and Matt, I'd been there before.
Yes.
And both of you and Matt were like really
this is a great example.
Intrigued on the footwear you should wear.
Yes.
And I said, last time I was there, I was in slippers.
Yeah.
AKA flip-flops.
Yep.
And I was fine.
Yeah.
You would be fine with both.
Yes.
I'm going to wear shoes. That's the end.
No. Because here's what changed my mind. Because I was going to wear sandals, flip-flops, whatever, slippers. And then you said, I would wear shoes if you want to be helpful to children. And boom, you gave me context and I put those sneakers on so fast.
Yeah.
Truth be told, you really could do it with either.
Yeah. I mean, the girls did it in Crocs.
They did it in Crocs.
Sports mode, obviously.
There was a young woman we passed who was in a cocktail dress.
And Crocs.
And Crocs. So really.
Speaking of, the Lava Rocks is like a nice little path.
It's like a hike. It's not a hike because it's not, I don't know. I assume all hikes are uphill. Is that true? That's not true because eventually you'd have to come down. It's like there were people we passed who had like what are they called?
Like the camelback
water
like
things. Like
the boots that are strapped up to
I was like, oh wow, you think you're really going somewhere. Okay. And then literally there was probably a young, maybe 16-year-old. Oh, she might have been younger. Literally in a cocktail dress.
And Crocs.
Full makeup on. And I was like, what are you doing
And then as I was leaving, you missed this.
I missed it, but Matt saw it. He said he took a picture.
I took a picture too.
Is it appropriate to post in the group?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I just want you guys to picture for a second this like lava rock hike where you're like kind of hiking on rocks and then like you're down by the ocean and you can walk on rocks and you can actually get in the water. Not really get in the water, but like you can put your feet in.
Yeah, some
and then like if
vibes.
you keep going, you like hike through like more of a foresty area. I just want you to picture maybe one or two animals that you might bring along on that journey.
Maybe like a dog?
Most people probably bring a dog.
Yeah.
If you're a real weirdo, you would bring a cat, like a real psycho.
Yeah.
But there's one step beyond that, and that's just bringing your bird along in a cage.
Somebody's got to do it.
I saw her coming. I'm like, man, that's a big bag. And I was like, nope, not a bag. That's a cage. That's a bird cage. There's a bird in it. She's taking her bird on a hike.
Do you see how more details provided context?
Oh, stop it. Well, it's a podcast.
It is. Oh, I forgot.
There's the caveat.
I forgot. No, I don't know how I missed it because we were all walking in the same direction and I was walking.
I think you guys were looking for the keychain.
With Matt. Oh, the keychain. Did you know how we found it? Did you learn how?
No, did Cocktail Dress Girl find it?
No, we didn't lose it. It was zipped inside the bag. So Sunny is walking with the keychain with her the whole time. And June is dead serious. Mom, that's so weird because I had just taken June's picture on her camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wearing Sunny's crossbody bag at the time. And she's like, that's so weird because I looked at it when you took my picture, which would have been like 90 seconds before it was suddenly lost. So I put the camera back in, I zipped it shut, and the heavy little keychain fell on the inside. Gave the bag to Sunny. Panic ensued because we lost the pink medal, but it's a stuffed animal.
It's a bear.
It's a bear from the Atlanta airport.
That we bought with vouchers.
We got it at that shop at that airport. I was like, yeah, I'm aware. We can probably order one on Amazon. Turns out we had it with us the whole time, much like the Holy Spirit.
Wow. That's nice.
This is a podcast, so.
That's nice. That's good.
I
saw this clip.
I bring what I can.
I saw this clip on Instagram. It was like a guy talking into a mic and it was like every guy with a podcast, POV, every guy with a podcast.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I want to blow your mind real quick. Think about this. There are castles in Ireland that are 400 years old, made of rock and stone, and they're crumbling. The earth is made of rock and stone, but it's not crumbling. So either we're really bad at making castles or the earth is a castle made by someone else.
That's good.
And I was just like, that is the kind of dumb thing someone would say on a podcast.
And you're like,
oh, yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
You like got all whispery with it.
That's good. I told you that, I won't say who, a friend of mine. Have we talked about this? I think we have. Maybe I've already called her out. I can't remember. Thought that POV, point of view, was a very inappropriate sexual contact. Like that did not mean point of view. It meant something else. She's like, why is everyone on Instagram talking about their POVs? I don't get it. And we were all like, that's not what that stands for. What do you think it stands for? Yikes. She just like didn't know.
I know what you're talking about.
I know. And maybe I've said it before.
No.
Or maybe Bianca and I talked about it and called her out. I don't know.
All right, Brooke, how was your week?
My week was good.
My week was great. You know
was it?
You know what's great about my week? Just so fun.
Was it? Do you want me to talk about my week, or do you want to talk about
yeah, go. Fine. I wasn't going to give any context. My week was good. End of sentence.
No. You said your week was good, though, and I had a little pushback on, was it really?
Yeah.
My week actually was good. I got a bunch of work done. I hung out with the kids.
We're jamming on Asana, baby.
I'm jamming on my planner.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are 3 weeks in.
We're 1/12 through 2024.
Okay, that's wild. That aside, we are 3 going on 4 weeks into like the new school shift, the new rhythm change, some work change. Like whatever we're calling this thing.
2.0. We're probably on 2.1 now.
Yeah, we're in it. And I feel like I'm finally seeing like little glimpses of how long-term helpful this will be. Yes. And not just like, oh, this feels better already right now. But like, it's really going to make a difference if we keep, it's like the snowball, right? The snowball has started.
The big shifts for us in the last 3 weeks have been girls going to 2-day school, 2-day a week, like a homeschool co-op. Mm-hmm. And then Brooke and I have honestly done a little bit of a role reversal where I am now teaching school Monday and Thursday. I'm the primary school teacher. Mm-hmm. Brooke teaches on Friday, but then she's just and even on like the days that the girls are at school, I'm still sort of more on Daisy duty because, we just realized early on that like Brooke needs more work time. Yeah. Like we've realized that this year in a big way. And so teaching school, driving kids to school. So those are the two big changes.
Yeah. I feel like that really was my week in a really good way.
You ordered some new Sunny Morrow stuff.
I did. That's exciting. Some dresses coming.
Got some
other stuff coming. Part of me's like, what is it? I feel like by the time you make final decisions and you've seen so many versions of what it could be, I'm like, well, I'm going to be surprised when it shows up.
That's how I feel about collections.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, we looked at, 40 versions of how we wanted that art to look. And then by the final one, I'm like, I think I remember.
We have like a 2-parter February collection coming. So the first part will be just secret message items. Those should be within the next few days. And then the second part will be like an actual collection of items, which is fun.
But how was your week?
My week was, again, I've sort of hinted at this. I've talked about it, not hinted, I've talked about it openly on the podcast and on Instagram with my final thoughts. Mm-hmm. Life feels super hard for me right now.
Yeah.
It just feels like crunchy and grindy and, just hard. I think some of that is sort of like this new sort of rhythm, which is like, that's not bad that it's new, but it can be hard. Like, I think a lot of it is sort of based in trust and faith and whether I put my faith in the Lord most days, or I try to put it in like what I can do and accomplish. Mm-hmm. So there's like a lot of tension in there, but the real fun part about my week this week was buying a new water heater. That was just like, you're like, what could jazz this week up a little bit more? How about a water heater?
A ton of money on.
Just there
goes
gone,
into the wind.
Vanished. I guess our water's warm again. That's good. But and so it was funny. My mom was like, last time we replaced our water heater was this much, and I laughed out loud at her and was just like, ha! Was that in the 1920s? Because it's a little more expensive now. So that was fun, but I'm telling you this for a reason. I knew the morning the plumbers were coming. Great guys. Really actually awesome company that we got to work with.
Yeah.
And we're getting a water heater, and then we're also getting a filtration system installed into our house because our water is so hard that it ate away at our faucet that Brooke uses. Like one day she turned it off.
I was washing my face, and then I shut off the faucet, and the faucet was still running full speed.
And we were like, what's happening? So we had to turn the water underneath, and we went to just using one side of the sink.
Right. So now it's only a matter of time till that one
And so
implodes.
Then the plumber came over, and I was like, hey, this happened. Like, is he's like, oh, your hard water ate through something on the inside.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
sweet.
That's cool. Cause like I rubbed that water all over my body.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. That's cool. Is that why I've got this weird looking rash on my back? No, I'm just kidding. And then he looked at my back and he prescribed something. And so the filter, like the water guys came, was like, hey, you know, it's funny. That was a funny story. They come in, 2 guys, and one of the guys had their son with him, and he like turned on the faucet.
Okay.
You weren't here for this. You were on Oahu. Turned on the faucet and like, you know, filled up a cup, put some drops in it, you know, did
pH
this thing.
Does something. Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, this is the best.
Dead serious.
Water's got +6 Hagas. And I was like, oh. He's like, what do you think about that? I was like, I literally have no thought about that. I can't give you a single bit of information back because I don't know what any of that means. And so he's like, oh, okay. It means you have really hard water. And I was like, okay.
That we're aware of. Have you seen the rings in our toilets?
Accurate. What do we do about it? And so he prescribed his system.
Back cream.
Yeah. It's like, oh, do you also have something for this? I like that. I like that character.
They're like, someone's coming to check the sprinkler system today.
Okay.
Someone's coming to check anything. And they're like, is
on
there
my
anything
inner
else I
thigh,
can
there's
help you
this
with before
really
I go?
weird mark.
You know what? Now that you're here, come in here. Come in here.
So anyways, so the filtration system is going on in the corner of our garage where our water comes into our house. And we have like some boogie boards and we hang some of our beach chairs there. And so I knew they were coming one morning. So I was like, I'm going to get that stuff out of the way, like save them time and energy. And like, you know, I like to try to help as much as I can. And so I am unscrewing the like, we have these things that hold our beach chairs on, like drilled into the wall. And so I'm unscrewing them. The first 3 come out, no problem. Like, zzz, and I've got them down.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one of the screws is like, it's like
stuck or stripped or
it's kind of stripped. So I'm like really pushing into it and like, you know, it's doing that thing that you, with your drill. It's like, you know, and I'm not thinking anything of it. It's like 7:40 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so, and I got one headphone in, I'm listening to something and I'm moving down. And then I turned to go back. Like I couldn't get it off. So I was like, I'm going to go get a screwdriver and like, see if I can just like hand turn it out. And I go get the screwdriver. I turn back around and there's a man in my driveway in his underwear. And
that's alarming.
Yeah, that's just alarming, period. No matter what time of day there's a man, but especially in the morning, you're not really expecting it.
Yeah.
And it's our neighbor, who also is a member of the band known as Grunge Sponge, who plays on Thursdays and Sundays nights so loud that it is...
it's almost police calling level.
Yeah, like we've gotten close to that point of just like, this is unnecessary. This is too much.
Yeah.
What does our dear neighbor say to me? Hey, keep it down. I'm trying to sleep. To which a once more sinful version of TJ had 400 responses immediately on the top of on the tip of his tongue. But I didn't say any of them.
Yeah.
Because I'm being refined by the Holy Spirit, as you mentioned earlier.
Who's present.
Who's always with us.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah.
And he walked away.
Yeah.
And then that night, Grunge Sponge played for hours.
Yeah.
Dropping grungy, spongy music. Yeah. So I was just shocked.
The tone deafness to his request.
And like,
is shocking to me.
It was loud. And
I mean, I heard it. I think, especially because it's one of those, I don't know if it's not power drill. It's the drill that also like hammers. Yeah. And if you've never heard one, it's loud.
Yeah.
I mean, I could hear it. I knew you were in the garage and I was still
And I did
upstairs.
feel bad. I apologized. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll stop. But I was just like, really? You guy, you're coming over here in your underwear, scaring the snot out of me, asking me to be quieter.
Because you're trying to sleep.
Yeah.
My kids go to bed 2 hours before you end your practice.
Thankfully, though, we can't hear it downstairs.
Barely.
You know, it's the loudest in our room, which I'll gladly take.
Yeah.
So that was my week. I think what mostly I'm feeling these last few weeks is like, honestly, I feel like just like a refining fire, and I don't love it. I don't think anybody loves that type of life or like those seasons, but I know I've gone through enough of them as someone in their late 30s, that I know that the end of it will be very fruitful in terms of like growth and understanding and intimacy. And so like, I do feel more open to it this time. I don't feel like I'm resisting it.
Right.
But it still doesn't make
it. Still doesn't make,
It's still not like, oh, this is so great. I love this. Like
refine
me, Lord.
Yeah. Like I don't enjoy being pregnant. I've said that many, many times. Like I am not one of those people that just is like, oh, I could do it all the time. Blah, blah. But you still do it. You know what I mean? Like so that's my tiny bit of relating to that of like.
But I feel, and Brooke sent out an email about this and I feel this both in sort of like the new rhythm that we're trying and sort of these new sort of, I don't want to say obstacles because that sounds like it's so intense.
Maybe it's like just in the category of like personal spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
they are the same. I don't even need to clarify.
Because I don't want to make it seem like something tragic has happened to us.
No,
it's nothing like that. It's just definitely, and I sort of try to explain on a final thoughts on one of our day in the life videos is that I just feel like life feels harder right now.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend yesterday on the phone and he was asking me how things were going. And I kind of explained that sort of same thing. I was like, I just feel sort of just like everything is much harder right now.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was like, same, me too. And then he was also telling me that he's talked to a bunch of buddies lately and they all kind of had said the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, so it's more just like that. And then with the new rhythm, I feel like what we're doing and what you kind of talked about in one of your newsletters is that it feels sort of like we're doggy paddling. Yeah. We love this language because we have there's such a vivid memory for both Brooke and I of June learning how to swim.
Yes.
We had started her, she'd given her swimming lesson. It didn't really like take or work. And then my sister had a pool. And so we would go over there and they have this like one really powerful jet. And I remember the first day the jet like sort of pushed her to the other side of the pool and she was doggy paddling. And I was like, oh, she's starting to get it. And then that happened like 3 or 4 days before we went on a vacation to Stone Harbor, New Jersey, and stayed in this like a little apartment complex that had like this very tiny rectangle pool.
Yes. The pool I grew up swimming in. So it's extra like emotional for me. Yeah.
And so that was the first, like June swam that whole length of that pool that week.
Yeah.
And it was as doggy paddle-ish as you can imagine.
Oh, precious. She's grinning the whole time.
Yeah.
So her mouth's full of water.
Yeah.
Because she's so excited. But she's like stopping on the edge. She gets finally from one edge to the other, or one side to the like the shallow to the deep end, and she's exhausted by the end. Yeah.
And so June the other night was up here talking to Brooke and saying, I miss you teaching us school. Dad's doesn't know how to do it. Some stuff like that. I think I'm a little more stern, or I don't know, whatever. I just have a different style.
It's different. Yeah.
And June's talking about this and Brooke basically says like, hey, remember that time that you learned how to swim in that pool in Stone Harbor? And remember how you were so tired after you swam one length because of how much energy it took because of, you weren't very good at it.
Yeah.
And now you're jumping in the ocean and swimming around, 3-4 foot waves with no issue and no problem. And you can swim for hours and hours.
Your breath and diving to the bottom or you're, it's like when you picture a little kid learning how to swim, it's not very graceful.
Yeah.
Even in literally in like a beautiful, graceful type way. Which is fine. It doesn't need to be, but swimming is something that can end up looking very graceful. And when you learn how to do it and do it well, and you practice and you practice and you practice and you just keep showing up and getting in the pool, like it will transition into that. You will eventually swim more smoothly. You'll glide. You'll learn how to push off the edge and glide a lot longer, using less energy to do
even
the
those of us who don't
thing.
like swim on a swim team. Or,
oh no, because I'm like I've got no graceful like backstroke or anything like that. But and so because I was talking to June about it, and it was just kind of the example that like came out, and I was very grateful. It was probably some prompting of the Holy Spirit,
which is always with us.
He was always with us. Which like, I'm always grateful for that. I do feel like I've gotten better at listening or believing that I have what it takes to come up with the language to talk about things instead of believing that I have nothing to say. But it was really helpful to her to explain that. And then as I processed the rest of my week, I was like, oh, wow, this is like really helpful to me as I picture all of us. Like, it's like basically like my whole family, we all jumped into pool 2.0.
Yep.
You know, which I think can happen in a lot of times in life. You could take a new job that totally shifts everything. Right. You could have another baby.
Yeah.
That like, it's where you're just like, life's different now. Yep. This is just different. So you're going to pack up from one pool and switch over to another pool. And
I think a lot of us are feeling that culturally. I think that's why someone said it's so hard, because a lot of us are feeling that sort of stress of the rapid inflation and just like that financial stress has never felt so commonplace as it does now. Like, rich, poor, like everyone feels that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, talking to one random friend who's talking to all of his friends, and he's like, we're all kind of saying the same thing. I think that can be a big part of it. And so it's interesting to like say that things feel hard right now and have so many people kind of be like, yeah, I agree. I don't know if that's ever happened quite like that before to me.
To you. Yeah. Yeah. I think people probably felt that about COVID.
Yeah.
But it was a very polarizing thing.
Yeah.
So people felt one way about it, this is hard, or another way about it, this is hard.
Yeah. And
I feel like this one is a little more like across.
But then the celebrities sang that John Lennon song and they healed the world.
Oh, stop it. Yeah. So I continued to think about this picture of me packing everybody up and being like, all right, after lots of conversation and lots of stuff, TJ and I believe that the best thing for our family is to pack up from this pool, POOL is what I'm talking about, pool, and move over to this other pool. Same size. It's not like it's different or better or worse. Right. It's just a different one.
Yep.
And we plopped everybody in, and it was like we had to relearn.
Yep.
And we still are.
Yeah.
What it looks like to swim over there.
Yeah.
And so we've got floaties on, we've got all this stuff happening. We're exhausted at the end of the day when we get to the other side. The next morning comes and they're like, I don't know if I want to get in. And I'm like, we got to get in or it's not going to get any better. Like, we won't learn how. And so I have two little additional points, other than just the very helpful language of when I picture June doggy paddling through her school day, which feels different and new now.
Yeah.
With TJ being the main teacher 2 days a week, and then her going to a physical location 2 days a week. That's new. I have so much more grace and kindness and slowness and empathy and all the things towards her when I picture her doggy paddling and trying really hard.
Yeah.
Versus like, are you kidding me? You've been swimming for years.
Yeah.
It's not that different.
Right.
Like, I don't have that attitude. And I also don't have that attitude towards you and I, who like, maybe we're not quite doggy paddling again, but in some senses we are. And so the two things that, as I continued to think about this little like piece of language, was, and I told this to June, like a couple days after the initial conversation, we were having a rough moment, I think doing reading or something. And I said, okay, picture yourself back in that pool, right? You're trying so hard. You're trying. And I see you trying. I said, but you know what is going to make you sink so fast every time? I said, is your attitude. And we were talking about it specifically within like school stuff, but you could take this bigger picture.
Yeah.
Like, if we put on the floaties of like joy and kindness, and I don't just mean like happiness, but like a positive attitude in that sense, in terms of joy and really just trying to be joyful in all things, even when it's hard. I'm like, they're like floaties on your arms, girlfriend. And it's going to feel so much easier to get to this other side of the pool at the end of the day. And then
it's good.
Yeah. I just think that, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times, maybe it's cultural, maybe it's just that things feel hard. I think people feel this, like, I should already know how to swim, like the shame of the should.
Yes.
Like, shouldn't we be past this? Are we really doing this again as a family? Yep. Like, are we, whatever it is, whether you're training your kid to do something, or teaching them to read, or you're starting a new rhythm or whatever, like, shouldn't we be past this point of doggy paddling in life? And I'm like, I think in some tiny little things, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think in the big picture, when I picture what we decided to do on the front end, which was leave this pool behind and go to this other pool, then I'm like, no, we've literally never swam in this pool before.
Right. That's good.
So it's like, well, there's no shoulds. Coming
and
along
I think
with that.
I think something that else can be really helpful is, we leave in this pool of life that we're comfortable with and we can swim around relatively easy. But it might not be the most expansive pool. It might be very small.
Yeah.
And
or maybe you can
limiting.
Touch. You can touch everywhere. Nothing's deep.
Yeah, nothing's deep, or it's just like it's limiting. As we swim in that pool so long, sort of like a goldfish, you're like, oh, this is my whole life. Nothing else is outside of this. I will never grow past this. And then we decide. Then we like all of a sudden like peek our head out high enough, and we're like, oh, there's something else over there that we can swim in. And I think something that can happen, and I think all of this happens to all of us, is that as we get out of the first pool to get into the second pool, that journey can be a wide distance or a short distance. Like it can be a long while to even just walk to that second pool to get to the place where you're like, hey, let's jump into this second pool. And I feel like in that space is like where a lot of people are like, do I need to quit my job? Should we have another kid? Like you're walking. So you're fish out of water in some regards of just like, this doesn't feel right at all, but you have to go through sort of that like period before you even jump into the next pool that's going to be bigger. Yeah. And I don't mean bigger in sort of the superficial way. I mean like
and that's
richer and deeper in terms of like what the Lord has
Water's
for you.
Filtered. Maybe it's a heated pool.
But I don't mean that like like the superficial way.
Like, it's
more
bigger
in just
and better.
like
it's got a slide.
The water
it's more fun.
of life. Like it's just richer and better and deeper and more amazing. You see God's faithfulness and his love and his joy more they're more present in that second pool.
Yeah.
And then you swim in there for a while, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I think there's another layer of this. Let's get out again.
Yeah.
But you had that first journey, like David remembered the lion and the bear. You're like, we can do this again. We could get out and walk to the second pool and jump in again. And I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I felt like for us, it was like we left Maui to go back for Christmas. And that was like this weird, I feel like we got out of the water there. Obviously, like we're not in our own space. We're living with friends and we're living with family. Like we're just out of our comfort zone of swimming in our normal rhythm.
Yeah.
And then we came back thinking we're going to get back in this pool. And maybe we even did for like a hot second, only to realize, nope, this is not the one for us this year.
Yeah.
So let's get out again. And so there was like this, almost like we're jolted twice out of this.
It's like when you pack up everything to the beach and you're like, oh, we're not staying. We're taking everything back with us.
And so
get the wagon.
Yeah. So I think what I'm learning through this conversation with you and sort of these last 3 weeks is that transition from one pool to the next is worth it. And it's even worth it when we did it twice, you know, it's sort of like
in, out, in, out.
Yeah. Like it still is worth it. And I think this language is super helpful to sort of gauge where you are in life, because you could be in pool 2.0, 3.0, whatever, call them what you want, and fully be experiencing that in the best way possible. This isn't like you need to get like out of the pool and go to the next one. I think there are moments in life when we need to do that, or when the Lord is calling us or inviting us into that. But I don't want this conversation between Brooke and I to feel like, hey, you're in the wrong pool. Get out of there. Now, if you feel that conviction from the Holy Spirit that's always with us, please listen to it. But I just want to sort of make that sort of like caveat that we could be in this pool for years.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
And as we're in it, we might be finding new areas of it. It's not this thing that we totally understand. You know, sort of similar to the question people always ask is, why'd you move to Maui? And my answer is, I don't know. And it's sort of like we jumped into this pool of moving and we're in this new water. And all of a sudden I've swam to a new edge that I've never seen before. And it's like, oh, there's a reason. And then I swim a little deeper and I'm like, oh, there's another reason. And so like adding some caveats to that language. And I have a feeling that pool talk might be sort of like
coin 2.0,
sort of like
about
coin
2.0 pool,
sort of like coin talk, where I think it's going to be this thing that we are sort of developing, learning about,
Yeah.
and adding to as we continue on talking about it. So
I'm all in. I'm going to buy us matching pool floaties.
All right, let's do it. That's it. That's all that we have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us a part of your week. Okay, I love you. Bye.